The number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is...
Hi guys, I'm Lex.
And I'm Liv.
And today,
we'll be the judges.
I did it right. On their birthdays was special. Ruby would treat us with a ride home from school. First video that was posted of 8 passengers was January 8th, 2015. She said that if Sheri would do the video, she'd give her $100. And after that, she texted her dad after class and said, "Dad, I'm depressed. I don't know if I want to live anymore." You can't smile when you're in the Instacare, Sheri. You're supposed to look like you're on your deathbed. One day after class, she kind of hung around the classroom and kind of opened up a little bit more about what was going on at home, and he just listened. And he validated her. So they were determined to find a so-called Chad whisperer. And that's what they
called it?
Yeah. That's when they found the monster herself, Jodi Hildebrandt. So she was a life coach, and she was a part of ConneXions. She was like the biggest part of ConneXions. So ConneXions was a program promised to help people overcome everything from porn addictions to distorted thinking. That was...
Help me, Jodi, I have a porn addiction.
That was it. And so her philosophy was
to basically just help the people.
No, her philosophy, they had 3 core principles, which was honesty, rigorous personal responsibility, and vulnerable humility.
Is she the one that told them to chain up the children?
She's the other one who did it. It was Ruby and Jodi. Yes, this is where we get to Jodi.
So Jodi's the basic problem.
Pretty much. So, from this, Jodi thought it would be a grand idea to send Chad to Anasazi.
What's a Sazi?
It's a wilderness therapy program in Arizona for troubled teens.
But he's not troubled. He's
if
just
you
a
know
normal
anything
teen.
about any wilderness programs,
they're nothing.
They're terrible. Terrible. But, you know what was crazy? It was $13,945 for 49 days of treatment.
That's so much money.
But they didn't even blink at the cost. And they did it.
That's so much money.
Mm-hmm. So, Sheri had looked up Jodi.
She took away their beds.
We're gonna get there. Can you stop?
I'm kidding. Stick around to find out if I am or not.
So, Sheri had looked up Jodi because her mom obviously was talking about her. And something seemed off from her gaze, her just everything. She just felt some she didn't like him.
Didn't like who?
Jodi. Sheri didn't like her. She just didn't get a good vibe from her looking at the picture.
Period. As you should have.
Jodi had talked a lot. She didn't talk to her kids. They didn't like her.
Makes sense.
Enough said.
How old were they? How old were her kids?
I don't know. Doesn't say, but she doesn't talk to them. She publicly has shared story of some of her own sexual abuse by a 15-year-old neighbor and then by a 16-year-old who lived with them.
Wait, who got abused?
Jodi, from 2 to 5 and then 7 to 9. Jodi was 26. Her ex-husband filed for divorce. She got full custody of her children, who were 9 and 7 at the time. So then she started her journey in 2003 to become a licensed clinical mental health therapist.
Which she should not have been. She should have been seeking mental health herself.
Yeah. Nothing else happened. Chad went. Blah, blah, blah. So then 3 months later, Chad came home from his camp. And he acted as if it was no big deal. Just like a quick nature walk around the desert for a quarter of a year. You know. But
that's insane.
He had more freedom there than he had at home. There was no vlogging. He was
probably
building
liked that
fires. All this stuff. As Sheri Googled Jodi more and more, there was more and more red flags that she found. So there was one in 2012 where a young man moved to Utah with his new wife and his baby to attend Birmingham Young University. And then his bishop recommended that he should see Jodi for therapy. And without any proof, Jodi accused her client of being an abuser and violated patient confidentiality by reporting him to the BYU's Honor Code office as a sexual predator.
But he didn't do anything.
Yeah. She also reported him to the church. And he was kicked out of BYU, the church. His marriage fell apart. All from Jodi just, saying stuff. Her license,
just because she wanted to.
Yeah. After that, her license was suspended.
Should have been taken away.
Yeah. Sheri had kind of shared her feelings with Chad about Jodi because Chad was obviously going to her. So she was like, I looked up some of the stuff. I don't think so. I don't think she's good. Like, I don't know. And he was defending her. I was like, no, it's okay. Like, I like her. And
he sent him away to a camp that was better than his own house.
And his words were, listen, I survived the desert. I can survive Jodi Hildebrandt. And he went and told her mom what Sheri had said. And Sheri had gotten in trouble with her mom. And her mom said that she wanted Sheri to see Jodi. And she said no at this point. So at this point, she had gotten her first car handed down to her from her dad. It was a 2016 Ford Focus. It was white. She was really worried because the car title was still in her dad's name. So in the back of her mind, it was, could her mom swoop in one day and take this small piece of independence from me? Because there was no legal proof that it was hers. But
the only thing that made it hers was her dad's words.
Yeah, but it was. Ruby and Kevin had went to a ConneXions conference. When they had come back, the dad said that it sounded like he was surrounded by a bunch of man-hating women. A lot of the stuff from ConneXions always ended up being against the man, which gets into it a little bit more of what Jodi had said about Kevin. There was another ConneXions thing, and it was a program. It was 6 weeks long training, 6 90-minute sessions with the trainers, access to Jodi's library of more than 100 podcasts, but the hefty price of $4,995 per person. Which they did.
And what was this?
Just like a workshop. And then there was a more intense one that was 18 weeks that cost $14,985. But Jodi didn't care. She had a $5 million house in Ivins, which is like, I think it's like a part of, more like, big part. So then this is where they start to relate.
They probably made that in one video.
To a cult. This is when she says, Ruby's descent into Jodi's wall hit warp speed, and she took the 6 weeks life coaching training course. Suddenly, she wasn't just drinking the Kool-Aid, she was brewing it. On Saturdays, I'd watch her hang out on Jodi's every Zoom broadcasted word like she was the second coming. The stars in my mom's eyes were blinding. So, shortly after, Ruby became a certified ConneXions coach. But patient confidentiality wasn't really much because she would tell everything that they told her to Jodi. There were crazy things being said. She had said that one lady was cheating on her husband. And you want to know why?
Why?
Because she noticed that the mailman was attractive. Just simply stating. Not saying, oh, but just saying. You can look at someone and be like, hey, I know that's a good-looking person. I'm not going to do it. Like, that doesn't mean anything. But you can look at someone and say, you're pretty. That's the same exact thing as saying, oh, he's cute. It's the same thing.
Yeah. My mom does that all the time. My dad will sit right there and he's like, ooh.
Yeah. Like, it's just, it's just, like, the things where a married man talking to a female coworker was unfaithful. Finding somebody attractive online would be classified as a porn addiction.
What?
It was just, like, crazy extremes.
That's jumping from 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm. So their thing, when this would happen with these husbands or whatever, is that they would be inviting him to leave. And they often went along with it. So when they were invited to leave, it was for them to so-called work on themselves. The man would separate from the rest of the family and was in no contact with them for a minimum of 6 months.
That's so insane.
Because
imagine a random lady telling you that you can't see your dad for 6 months because he's crazy.
Yeah. And her reason behind the 6 months is that somebody for a short term can fake the remorse or they can make short term adjustments, but if you can do it for half a year, then you have proof that you have changed when there wasn't really much to be changed. This is what Sheri had said about ConneXions in terms to Ruby. ConneXions wasn't introducing Ruby to a new way of thinking. It was giving her a vocabulary and pseudoscientific backing to justify what she's been doing all along. Jodi's symptom had simply slapped a fancy label on this emotional starvation diet and called it therapy. In the end, ConneXions didn't change Ruby's tactics, it just gave her a manual to refine them.
To make them worse, basically.
Yeah. Jodi had said that Chad wasn't improving enough throughout their therapy, so she advised her parents to pull him from track and football, which was his everything. He won first place in the districts for the 100-meter dash and the 200-meter dash, and he had scholarships coming for football and track, so he never got that opportunity. Because if he couldn't be responsible for himself, how could he be responsible for a team?
That's insane.
Throughout all this ConneXions stuff, it took 2 or 3 years from all this ConneXions stuff starting that she cut off contact with her immediate family.
Who?
Ruby cut off contact with her mom, her dad, her sisters, all that. And then Chad had been said to make progress. And this is where Ruby said, Chad has made the progress, now it's your turn, Sheri. So she said, the choice is yours. Either you do a one-on-one counseling with Jodi, or we take away your car, your phone, and pull you out of school entirely. You decide. So now school, which is something that you legally have to go to until you're 18, was threatened to be taken away.
Basically forced to drop out.
Pretty much. After this happened, she went up to her room and she searched how to emancipate yourself from your parents. You know what emancipation is?
Basically take them, leave.
Yeah, you're on your own. So, Sheri started her calls with Jodi, and she had told her to write down some things that she thought were, just basic cognitive distortions that she had throughout the day. Now, these are all just regular Joe Schmo old things, but
to them, it was
terrible.
She was the worst kid.
Then, on from that, they did another one. She, got into her head about things, and she had made a list again. Stupid things that are little things that just happen. It is what it is. It's crazy.
End all be all.
But she had become very obsessed with microanalyzing herself.
You're still learning how to grow up, and you're still learning how to be who you want to be. So microanalyzing literally everything you do, what is that solving? Worrying about literally every single thing you want to do isn't open.
Yeah. And Jodi's thoughts of fixing Sheri was, assume you're going to ace a test because of course you think you're smart. You think you know what you're doing. Change the language in your mind. Flip it. Think, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this test because I'm a stupid little girl. So her advice was to basically self-degrade and change all of her positive thoughts to, but what if I fail?
Make it negative.
Yeah.
Turn something a positive into a negative.
Yeah. Her thing was self-deprecation plus vulnerability equals this quote-unquote truth. So then from all of this stuff that was happening, she had been losing a lot of her friends because of the way she was acting and not only microanalyzing herself, but then in turn microanalyzing all of her friends.
Everybody else.
And in her mind, it was just a test to see how strong and dedicated she was to this so-called truth. There was one day where her friend had came to her for just telling her that she kissed a bunch of people, kind of how she went on her kissing spree. Her friend did this as well, and she asked her what was the motive, and she was they were just cute. Do I need some deep reason? And so then she said, as your friend, I must ask, what does a kiss actually mean to you? What part of your ego was it serving when you chose to share yourself in that way? And her friend was like, Sheri, why are you interrogating me? And she said, I'm just curious. She said, no, you're judging. You're being mean. I thought you were my friend. Don't you remember when you were the one going around kissing boys? And she said, true growth comes from confronting our deepest flaws. Are you willing to do the work? And her friend got upset and stormed off and didn't talk to her after that.
Yeah. When did you get Shakespeare?
Yeah. So then in class, the teacher said, we're going to read this book here.
Mini Shakespeare in the making.
And she didn't like that they were reading this book. And this is what she said. She stood up in front of the whole class and said this to the teacher. I think you're engaging in emotional reasoning, letting your positive feelings about the chosen cloud your judgment about its sustainability for the class. Just because you personally find it well written does not mean it is the ideal choice for an objective educational standpoint. You're worshiping the should rather than rationally evaluating whether it truly meets the student's needs, which means that your thought process is distorted by unexamined assumptions and an over-adultery view of the book's merits for its purpose.
What the fuck did half those words even mean?
Yeah. Teacher kind of just laughed and
Went on.
Yeah.
What else are they supposed to do?
But she told her mom what had happened, and her mom said, "I'm proud of the woman you're becoming." And those words were filling her up because she was being praised
For doing bad.
something that, yeah. In 2019, the channel continued to skyrocket, which is when Ruby and Kevin bought a new house, just a couple blocks away. Well, this house was just for show, not really for living. It was camera friendly.
Oh.
There wasn't much there. The walls were bare. There were little pictures. The lighting was insane. It was clean, pristine, and said to have lacked warmth. Everything was designed for the camera, not for comfort. The kids weren't allowed to decorate their rooms, put up posters. So then March 3rd, 2020, her 17th birthday, Ruby had finally allowed Sheri to paint her room, and she chose a blue-green triangle pattern, which was, in her words, a small rebellion against the stark whiteness that dominated her house. So it was just something very different, very bright, very whatever, to do that.
Something new besides white.
But then just 10 days later, COVID-19, boom, from this, Ruby had done more and more and more with ConneXions, which she had said that she was changing lives. And at first, Sheri had said it was true. She changed. The yelling stopped. She seemed calmer and more in control. She didn't fly off the walls at minor infractions or disagreement, but something else had taken place. Ruby's punishments became more psychological in nature, focused on our emotions and minds than our body. So this is the video that started all of the 8-passenger drama. I mean, there's always been it, but this was the one that really started. So May 2020, there was a video called What We Haven't Told You. This is when they were just sitting, and Chad had dropped that he finally got his bed back and said that he was sleeping on a beanbag for 7 months.
And the mom saw nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
So when Ruby removed his bedroom privileges, as she said, his options were a pull-out guest bed, an inflatable mattress, or whatever he wanted. His whatever, he chose a beanbag chair in the basement. For 210 nights, he slept on that. And Ruby didn't see anything wrong with it. It slipped out during the filming. Ruby didn't really care. She kind of laughed along with it. Her editor didn't take it out and made it the focus of the video. And Ruby watched it, didn't care, and posted it.
Now is when Ruby started posting a little bit more of how she actually punished her kids and what she did to punish them. And some people saw this big problem with it, and some people were like, no, that's a completely fine way of punishing your kids, which it's not.
When it uploaded, people went crazy. And then when Ruby started going on TikTok or comments and whatever, they were accusing her of child abuse. Kevin suggested to take the video down.
Who's Kevin?
The husband. And she said, no. Jodi says we need to stand firm in our truth. We can't let the haters win. So,
and he's like, bitch, I'm getting arrested. Like, this is not only her. Like, this is ruining his livelihood too.
Well, from that video, they lost 90% of their income from the channel. Hundreds of thousands unsubscribed. Brands once eager to associate with our wholesome family image couldn't distance themselves fast enough. So
that's so embarrassing.
She had said, people have been asking for years how I raised such well-behaved children. Now they know if they can't handle the truth, that's on them.
So somebody's got to start working again, because clearly they lost 90% of their income.
In a kind of, not bad way, but they were hoping that this was them getting their lives back. But
parents.
Yeah. So then these are some of the videos that after this one, people rewatched and
we're like,
look back and we're like, oh, maybe that's not. So there was one called An Eye for an Eye when Ruby was threatening to behead her youngest sister's little bunny. So her rationale for this was, you murder someone else's possession, how would it feel if I murdered yours? Which,
what did she even do?
It doesn't really say, but to a 5-year-old, a stuffed animal is more than a stuffed animal. That's that's a friend. It's the coping mechanism. It's something that's helping them navigate the world. It's not just
a stuffed
animal. And then there was another one, how she bragged how she wouldn't bring a packed lunch into school for her youngest daughter who had forgotten it that day. Teachers called her and said that they were uncomfortable, but that she said that she wouldn't drive lunch over. And she said, I told the teachers my daughter is responsible for making her own lunches in the morning. The natural outcome of forgetting your lunch is that you're going to be hungry.
Which is not wrong. But a child needs to eat.
You can teach your kid responsibility to make their lunch, but at 5, you should be helping them. You could say, hey, let's pick it out together. Let's do it together. Fine. It should not all be on
My
them.
mom still makes my lunch.
Then people were bombarding by BYU, which is where her dad worked at a college, trying to fire the dad from the job. They had like the change.org position, all this stuff. So Ruby and Kevin sent cease and desist letters to content creators who were kind of going over their videos and saying it was abuse and stuff. And they were kind of trying to stuff everything back in a bottle. But then CPS came out. They didn't find any obvious things of child abuse, but there was no going back on what had happened. And that kind of was when everything started going down more and more. Then the summer rolled around and Jodi had now said they could not watch The Simpsons and they had to have an electronic-free summer. For the whole summer, Sheri had been talking about all this stuff, how she said she had another meeting with Jodi. She said, this week I had black and white thinking 7 times. I caught myself telling stories 5 times. And she said, that you're not getting it, Sheri. This is more than just telling your thoughts like an obedient little drone. Her words, obedient little drone. She said, stop apologizing. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. She didn't know what she wanted at this point. She was telling her one thing, doing another thing, telling her one thing one day, telling her the next, like, just changing up that she didn't know what she was supposed to do.
She had no definite, like, go clean your room. You know your mom wants you to go clean your room, and then when you clean it, you're getting in trouble for cleaning it.
Yeah. So then, this was her journal. Jodi thinks I'm relying too much on external validation. She said I was an obedient little drone focused on getting approval from her and Ruby. Then she said I'm not understanding compassion and empathy. It was awful. I don't want to be a cold and unfeeling person, which is how she described me. So then in the next week, she asked Jodi, she said that she told her that those words had hurt her, and Jodi had said that she did not say those things to her. She then looked back in her journal that she had written right after, where those words were written down. But this was kind of a common theme to be seen in Jodi. Well, this was what she said her final straw for me was with Jodi, was when she was talking about how babies are distorted. Those tiny, innocent bundles of joys with their soft and drowsy hair and their wide, trusting eyes. According to Jodi, they're manipulators who feel entitled to their mothers to come to tend for them at every whim. The problem with society today is that we coddle children. We give them everything they want, and then we wonder why they grow up to be lazy and selfish. So she clapped back at that, but they're babies. They can't help when they need things. And she said, Sheri, you think a baby doesn't know how to manipulate, how to get what it wants? A baby cries because it's entitled, and it knows someone will come rushing because it believes the world revolves around them and their needs. Unless you train it to not be entitled, you're just reinforcing the behavior in them. It's our job as women and mothers to break the cycle of manipulation. Teach children from an early age that they need to earn their blessings. Only then can we hope to create a society free from distortion.
So basically saying, if you cry...
No, saying that a baby, like
baby. Little pop out the womb baby that needs to eat every 3 hours, and unless you have a timer that says they need to eat 3 hours, you forget unless they start crying every 3 hours. Then, when they don't cry, somebody's bound to forget about it.
So that was kind of her last straw.
That's a Jodi in a little nutshell.
So then comes another monster into Sheri's life. His name's Derek. Derek was high in the church. He was a family man, a landowner. He was in his late 40s. In May 2021,
How old is she?
May 21, right after I graduated high school.
Okay, so 18.
He asked for my help with social media strategy for his company, offering me a side gig to help him put together YouTube videos. Having just turned 18, it meant a lot to me to be respected by an adult, to have singled me out, to recognize her skills that she had. He was very crazy with her, would praise her, did kind gestures, made her seem cared for, would DoorDash her when she had a tough day, would take her on shopping trips.
So was a parent.
Saying that he was the only one who cared about her. One day, she accidentally called him dad, and he got a little angry at that. So she told her mom about working with him, and she didn't like the idea of it, which in this case, she was right. She ended up working with Derek behind her mom's back anyways, so didn't really change. So then,
then again, I wouldn't listen to her either because she told me not to do things, so she dug herself that grave.
Now comes Jodi. She starts to come live with them and takes Sheri's room.
Where the hell is Sheri?
She has to sleep on the couch because at this point she was going to college, so she wasn't.
So there wasn't lots of time.
So this is another journal entry. The house's spirit feels weird with Jodi here. Something's going on between her and my parents that we don't know about, and the whole thing is super secretive. I'm trying to spend as much time out of the house as I can. We're getting there. We're getting there. Ay, ay, ay. Derek was the person Sheri would go to talk about all this stuff because he listened, he cared, so she talked about it. But Jodi was in a dark place mentally, according to this. They said she would go into mysterious trances, not quite seizures, not quite sleep, but something in between, which they had said as
she was possessed.
Spiritual intervention.
So possessed.
So they said. So they said.
She wasn't possessed, she was just a psycho bitch.
Yeah. And so Ruby decided, for the best of her friend, that she needed to bunk with her.
Oh!
Because so her friend didn't have to suffer throughout her demonic night terrors alone.
Oh.
So
there were some night terrors. There sure were some night terrors.
It may sound strange, but I've never seen Ruby happier than when Jodi was living with them.
Something was getting her happy.
Now we have Pam, who came to join the Three Musketeers. I don't know, she's just a random friend. She's not really important. So Kevin started finding himself on the outside. He was told,
Kevin?
The husband.
Okay.
He was told that upstairs was off limits. He could leave the house when he wanted to, but he couldn't return without Ruby's permission. Even access to the kitchen for meals required her approval, and she dictated if and when they were allowed to communicate.
They're married. He pays for part of the house.
Well, she even tried to transfer the control of the 8 passengers brand to Jodi. When her agent said, no. That ain't happening.
That ain't happening not right here.
So,
not right here no more.
She was talking to Derek, saying, this is what's happening. He said, it's not good. It must be lonely. She's like, I'm used to it, bitch.
He probably liked it better.
Yeah. So then her mom and Jodi had been away somewhere on a so-called Dairy Queen run. So she went into her room, which was now Jodi's and apparently Ruby's as well, to get a couple of her books that she had in her room. And she said, I pushed open the door to my bedroom and looked around confused. The room was bathed in soft glow of candles. The air was heavy with the scent of lavender and vanilla wafting from massage oils on the dresser. I quickly grabbed what I needed to and got the hell out of there, feeling like I just walked into somebody else's honeymoon suite. That night I couldn't sleep. Maybe it was the fact that the couch was hurting my neck or the fact that I knew something I wasn't supposed to. I tossed and turned swirling, and it was about 5 a.m. when I hear creaking of footsteps upstairs. I cracked one eye open just in time to see Ruby tiptoeing out of the room, her hair messy, her cheeks flushed, and her robe hastily tied. Heading back to the bedroom she shared with my dad. A strange smile on my face. She looked mischievous. She said it was equal parts fascinating and horrific. 2 women preached quote-unquote truth while living lies. Who condemned, I guess that means don't like, queerness very publicly on their ConneXions video while embodying it privately. In my bedroom, on my bed, most likely. So then Sheri had her own friends who were gay. And she went to them and asked them what their thoughts were of her. And their responses were, oh my God, that woman is so closeted. And that kind of got her thinking. And her other friend added, often the most homophobic people were the ones who were actually hiding something about themselves. And she said, I know my community isn't exactly leading the pride parade when it comes to queer acceptance. And a lot of older folks are clutching their pearls at the mere mention of it. But times are changing, and the younger generation, myself included, see things differently. Personally, I like to remember that Jesus taught us to love everyone. The word truth was Jodi and Ruby what they used kind of as their weapon.
So Jodi and Ruby are deeply infatuated with each other. And Jodi thought that maybe if they make this is their mindset.
If I
make a video about me hating the gays,
they won't know I am.
They won't get any questions.
It doesn't work like that. You can hide it, but people see right through.
Closet may be closed, but doesn't mean there ain't cracks.
So now, Sheri was off to college. She went to Birmingham Young University.
My hands are so cold.
Where her dad was working. She was majoring in political science. And it wasn't, like, far from her house and everything.
Her dad worked there. There was comfort.
Yeah. So
but did she live on campus?
Yeah. So, like, once they left, she had, like, a relief ball. So she just kind of felt alone. There were no siblings. There was nothing. But then Derek had texted her and said, want to stop at the office later once you're settled in. He has some gifts and all this stuff.
Wait, so is Derek basically just a second dad, or are they in love?
I'm about to get to it.
Okay.
She went to see him, and he kind of could tell something was up. She started having a panic attack, thinking about everything. To which his response was, Sheri, listen to me. I think skin-to-skin contact will help you calm down. Can I take your shirt off? So in her head, it was no, but he just said, trust me. Just let me help you. And so her shirt was off. His hands roamed over my back, my stomach, and snaked up to cut my breast through the thin fabric of my bra. I felt myself go numb, felt my mind detached from my body, floating up and away until I was looking down at a scene above. A girl on a couch, a man looming over her, his hands possessive, greedy. This was the first time someone had touched me like this. It couldn't be me. It couldn't be happening. Not to me. And from there, obviously, she felt like it was her fault. Is this who I am? Is this all I'll ever be?
Well, wasn't he head of the church?
Mm-hmm. So that's why she thought it was her fault.
But honestly, when you are captive like that, or you're told not to, like, this goes literally with anything. You're told not to do it, so you want to do it more.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's 40 years old and he's never had a wife.
No, he's married with children.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, actually.
You take back all?
A little bit. But that's only one partner that he's ever had his whole life.
I don't know. It doesn't really say that. She didn't like Derek, but he clung to the attention that he gave her because it filled the void of her parents. She went to pop in to say hi, but nobody was there. She wasn't allowed to go in her room again because Jodi and Ruby were busy in there. She said busy with what? Braiding each other's hair, wrestling demon warlords, debating the merits of Dairy Queen peanut butter bash versus chocolate chip cookie dough, which is it, Dad?
So they knew something was going on.
Yeah. I mean, how the fuck could you not?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving was always something like important in their family. They really liked it. But they said that they were going to go to Jodi's house for Thanksgiving this year. And Sheri said, no, she wasn't going.
I wouldn't go either.
She said your siblings will be disappointed. But she didn't include herself in that statement. But she didn't care. She would have rather spent Thanksgiving alone than with her. Instead of that, she went to her grandparents' house by herself for Thanksgiving.
Probably better parents than they were.
Well, yeah. Her grandparents didn't really have, like, phones, like, stuff like that. Like, they weren't really in touch. So he kind of asked if everything was okay. And she said, yeah, she just didn't see them often, so she just wanted to see them, and that was kind of it. And he just, like, let them stay, sat with her, acted like things were normal, and they just had, like, a nice dinner. So, and that's all she really wanted. When Sheri had come home for Christmas, her brother Chad opened the door and said, hey, sis, welcome to hell.
Oh!
Her father was sleeping alone, and Ruby and Jodi wanted to go to dinner with Sheri and her two siblings for just like a girls' night out. And so they said that they wanted to go at 7. 7 comes around, no signs of Jodi or Ruby, but they could hear them doing something in the bedroom.
We knew what they were doing.
So in her head, dinner was off. She started making spaghetti for her siblings, and then they sat on the couch and were watching a movie. At 8 o'clock, Ruby and Jodi came downstairs all dressed up, and they said they were ready to go. And they had told her that they already ate, and then they were very upset with it. And her response was, well, Mom, isn't one of the principles of truth being on time? And her mom said, Sheri, if you ever paid attention in your sessions with Jodi, you'd know that another important principle is being flexible in your relationships. And she goes back with, which is why I went ahead and made my own dinner tonight. Very flexible. Her mom's only response to that was, your poor future husband, Sheri. I feel sorry for him. Good luck finding a man who wants a selfish wife like you.
I will. Bitch. Suck on that.
And then she had told her mom, like, hey, if you're this mad, uninvite me to Christmas. Uninvite me. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't really want to go.
And her mom...
I don't want to go anyway, so...
Her mom's response was that she couldn't take the abuse. Her mom couldn't take the abuse. So Ruby and Jodi went out to dinner.
Of course.
Yeah. Ruby and Jodi went out to dinner by themselves.
Little date night.
And then
Little date night.
Yeah, her mom was really upset. She ended up apologizing to her mom. So now, we're on to Christmas. Sheri had been informed that her 2 youngest siblings would not be receiving any Christmas gifts this year.
Why?
We're teaching them to not be selfish and entitled.
Okay.
And then furthermore, they must ask permission before speaking to any of you. If they interrupt you, they must get reprimanded. This is non-negotiable.
How old are they?
I think at this point, they're probably like 5 and 7, maybe. Maybe a little older, but young enough to still
Deserve candy?
have Christmas.
Nope. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Deserve Christmas. I don't know. What the fuck am I thinking about candy?
You're hungry.
Apparently.
So they were opening their gifts. And everybody kind of felt bad opening the gifts in front of them, but then the little ones were being yelled at, having them being like, clean this up, do this, do that. He told them you can't just expect love and presents when many have nothing at all. Okay, presents.
She's not wrong.
Presents fine, but love should be
given
not
no matter what.
A thing to your child. But to each their own, I guess.
Love shouldn't be a reward.
Yeah.
It should happen all the time.
Yeah.
You can be mad, but you should always love your child.
Yeah. So then after New Year's, she went back to her college and she felt like she had abandoned her siblings. But Jodi was now saying that she was going back home. She was fine. She was ready to go home, which Sheri was worried about because now she could be taking her feelings out on her kids, and things might even get worse now that Jodi wasn't there to intervene or whatever the fuck they did.
Maybe Jodi was helping her, getting the edge off. Hey,
so now we're back to Derek. Things escalated real quick because he was training her for marriage. Showing me things I would need to do in order to please my future husband. Not all the way, he insists. But.
So basically, I won't whip my dick out and shove it in you, but I'm going to show you how to do it.
Pretty much. Your husband is going to be disappointed on your wedding night if you're uncomfortable being touched like this. See how you flinch when I do that? You don't want to do that in front of your husband, do you? So then,
I don't want it no matter the night. I don't want it.
Yeah. So she made excuses, remained in denial. She couldn't make herself cut the cord, like cut ties with him, because on one hand, his attention made her like real uncomfortable, but on the other, it was the only form of support she had and everything.
Yeah.
He was the only person who knew about her parents. She had asked him, she said, I don't know if this is right. I don't think this is something good. And he had said that he was, high in the church, so just, do you really think I would do anything to jeopardize my calling? And so in her head, she said, it's true. He was a man of God, a worthy member. Suddenly, I felt very ill. So now she was feeling like this is what she was supposed to do. Because she said, I didn't want him like that, but I was so addicted to the scraps of validation he gave me, the morsels of support he tossed my way when it came to my family. He was the only one who knew about how messed up it was and was telling me I wasn't crazy or making it all up in my head. So he kept just like pushing and pushing and pushing to the point where she kind of didn't. She was done. But at this point, she did text her mom. Her mom's response. I sense a lot of aggression in your text, a lot of resentment. I'm going to invite you to invite me to talk about this in person. So she invited her out to dinner.
Oh. I'm going to invite you to invite me in to let you talk to me because you just can't talk to me whenever you want.
Yep.
I have to let you talk.
She had told her mom that she didn't feel like she was hearing her or that her feelings didn't matter. And she said, I need you to examine your motives because it feels like you're hiding something. So the check was now dropped off. And her response to this was, and since you're an adult now, we'd like to invite you to pay for dinner.
Who's we?
Mom and Dad.
Oh.
So then everything that she was
thinking... So somebody's not making enough money.
Yeah. Everything she was thinking, all the thoughts going through her head was, is this me? Is this Jodi? Is this God? Is this just my anxiety talking? She didn't know what was her, what was somebody else, what was anxiety. She didn't know anything. So she said that she was so used to, just being pushed around on, like, videos and stuff. She said, my body, my space, and my very being, none of it was mine. So when Derek started pawing at me, started treating me like his personal property, I went inside my head, fell back on that big fake smile that had gotten me through so much already. But deep down, I knew who Derek was. He was just another one of them, another one of the poisonous adults in my life.
Yeah, so she was just surrounded by terrible, terrible people.
It's because people, not everything.
It's all them Utah kids.
No, not everything, but people.
See, look at their curls. They got Utah curls that are half straight, half curled.
People in the church think that they can get away with things because
of who
God is telling them, but it's just an excuse that they're using to do
things they shouldn't.
When they know they're wrong, but that's their only excuse that they have because it's the only one people are going to be like, oh, yeah, you're good then.
I'm the bishop in the number one church in the state. What are you gonna do? That's like, I'm the sheriff, so I can actually speed.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. It's like the people in the church preach, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that.
When
but then
they do
the
it.
first people to do it.
Like, cops pull people over for speeding, and we all know they do.
Yeah.
Everybody speeds.
Not I. Duh. Alright.
Oh my gosh, I forgot you don't. Follow every traffic law.
I know.
To a T.
Huh?
Best driver out here.
You know. You want to take a break?
Break number 2! To be continued. Dun.
Done.